Started. All right, well, so welcome everyone to our first innovation exchange of the new school year. And we are happy to welcome Debbie Olson-Morrison to talk about the universal design of instruction. She's also one of our faculty fellows this year. She's leading a special interest group on this topic. So if you missed her first meeting a couple weeks ago, she's got another one coming up soon. So keep an eye out for that. And hopefully you'll see why this topic is so important for all of us teaching today. So Debbie.
Great, thank you, Stacy. So, camera's up there. Hello.
Hello, it's great to see you, Debora.
Hi, Ember. So I want to introduce also Ashley Boyer, who is going to be presenting this topic with me. So the story behind this really quickly is I didn't really even think about faculty fellows until I met Ashley, and she introduced me to this topic. And it was an interesting time for me because I had encountered so many challenges and hurdles with a lot of my students in sort of creating accessibility in my classroom, whether it be I had some international students, I had some veterans when we were doing all-day classes in the underground Monday that, you know, by the end of the day, I was like, what can I do? And then we had various other issues that I felt like I didn't know what to do, but I knew something needed to be done to reach all learners in the classroom and move away from the sort of one-size-fits-all model. And so Ashley and I got to talking, and then I applied for fellows. So she graduated last year with her graduate degree in social work, and she's now my official consultant on UDI. Every time I have an idea, I sort of run it by her. What do you think from a student perspective? What do you think from a perspective of somebody who has a disability? And so she's been incredibly helpful. So she's going to help me present on this topic today: inclusivity in course curriculum, universal design of learning. So I'm going to go ahead and start the slideshow. And what I'm going to do in this very short amount of time is give you an overview of what universal design is and how it fits into curriculum and the major principles we think about when using universal design, and give you sort of a really brief but huge overview so you can kind of go home and digest the information, and then hopefully come back to a SIG and we can talk more about how you're incorporating it into your classroom or the struggles you're encountering with incorporating it into your classroom. So why universal design? Well, essentially, we think about giving students accommodations, you know, sending them to academic support or something like that when they need it after they approach us or we notice something is a hiccup with their learning. This is the exact opposite from that. This is a proactive approach to creating course design and curriculum to remove barriers so no one is isolated as a result of either needing special accommodations or having a special learning style. And to boot, recent research in sort of 10, 15 years ago was coined the sort of the decade of the brain, and they did a lot of neurobiological research, and we learned that, you know, in reality, something we already knew, that we're more different than we are alike in our learning styles. So do you want to show the quick video, or do you think we should cover the information? Okay, so we're going to show a quick video just to give you a brief overview of what universal design looks like in secondary education.
This teacher needs to meet a curriculum goal, and she's got a very diverse group of students. And so does this teacher. And this one. Most do. In fact, research shows that the way people learn is as unique as their fingerprints. What does this mean for teachers of today? Classrooms are highly diverse, and curriculum needs to be designed from the start to meet this diversity. Universal design for learning is an approach to curriculum that minimizes barriers and maximizes learning for all students. Whoa, that's a fancy term. Universal design for learning. Let's unpack it a bit. Let's think about the word universal. By universal, we mean curriculum that can be used and understood by everyone. Each learner in a classroom brings her own background, strengths, needs, and interests. Curriculum should provide genuine learning opportunities for each and every student. Now let's think about the word learning. Learning is not one thing. Neuroscience tells us that our brains have 3 broad networks. One for recognition, the what of learning, one for skills and strategies, the how of learning, and one for caring and prioritizing, the why of learning. Students need to gain knowledge, skills, and enthusiasm for learning, and a curriculum needs to help them do all 3. But
Okay, so that gives us just a very brief look at what UDL is and what the framework of UDL looks like. So let me get back to our slideshow here. All right, Miss Ashley, take it away. Yeah.
So we're starting on the description of
Yeah.
universal design. So, well, like it said, universal design is approaching it from the beginning and making this information accessible to everybody. And incorporating this information from the beginning, it designs the class, the course, so that the student becomes an expert student. An expert learner is their terminology that they use, and this is actually a great definition or terminology, because an expert learner is resourceful, knowledgeable, strategic, determined, purposeful, and motivated. So they can bring together their own information from before and utilize this to engage how they need to, and use this information to get where they want to be in life, not where we think they should be, where you should take this test and pass it. No, it's if the student wants to learn this information, they can, and they can pass it. Universal design targets the 3 networks that has been shown in the most, recent, as in it goes back all the way to the 90s. So 20 years ago, we have uncovered this information through research that each of us learned through 3 different neuroprocesses, and universal design utilizes these processes through 3 principles. The 3 principles of universal design are engagement, representation, and action. And oops, I got a throat. And the first principle is engagement. It's creating, it sets the atmosphere for the individual to learn. The term, sorry, the expert learner. Oh,
That's okay. So can I take the little black box? So we talk about through engagement, you're offering students the opportunity to for options for self-regulation. So that's, for an instance, if a student gets highly frustrated very easily with course content, you're offering supports and scaffold for coping mechanisms to focus and follow through. Particularly useful, for example, say someone with ADD or ADHD. You're also providing options and flexibility around the way they engage with the material so they can sustain their effort across time with that skill. And then obviously you're providing options so they're actually learning what they're really interested in.
And then with principle 2, providing multiple means of representation, focusing on creating these resourceful and knowledgeable expert learners as well. And Debbie.
Well, I mean, these are self-explanatory, really, providing options for comprehension and perception, and we'll get into how representation is articulated in course design and curriculum development. But really, it's the way you deliver the methods in the classroom, the way that you're delivering information. Is it accessible to everybody? Can people who don't hear so well look at a screen and still understand the information, for example?
And then the third principle is action and expression, or providing multiple means, so different opportunities for this. This is more of the how a student learns. And so you take into consideration how they learn. And
so for instance, and you can see again in that black box, but for instance, a student may not be a great visual or auditory learner. So are you providing flexibility and options for them to engage with the material in other ways besides auditory and visual? So that's the physical action part. And of course, the executive functions are higher order functions of planning and processing material. And what ways are you giving them to engage with it through their actions and also show you what they've learned? So this is where I'm going to take over because it's curriculum based. So UDL defines curriculum as your goals, your methods, and your materials, and the way that you assess learning. So we look at it as they're all together. So we look at the goals, methods, materials, and assessment all within the context of those three principles of engagement, representation, and action and expression. So UDL defines goals as what you expect to learn. And the biggest takeaway with goals that I'd like to stress is how are you separating your goals from the means you are teaching? How is everything that you are working towards centered around your primary goals, whatever they may be? So for an example, if you are, used to do a midterm in my research course, and it was a multiple choice midterm, and one of the students said, you really have to know how to take a test to pass this midterm. And I thought, man, that totally defeats the purpose of the material that I'm trying to teach them. I'm not trying to teach them how to pass a test. I'm trying to teach them material around research. Methods are the way you decide to teach the material. And this is a really important part of UDL, because if the only method that I am using is standing up here and talking to you week after week, there are bound to be many learners in your environment who are not picking up the information. So I may use, like I said, engagement with manipulatives, for an example, as one of the methods that I am using. Really sort of supports the learner's social and emotional resources. And then the materials are really the heart of UDL. So Canvas is a great place for us to incorporate UDL materials and provide flexibility on what we're offering to students and how they're accessing it. For example, if you're going to have them research articles, you can give the option of having the articles, a lot of them on our library system now, they are auditory as well. So you can listen to them or read them. And this also provides us with ways to meet multiple students of if they're in a different place. So if somebody's way up here, we can provide materials for them, whereas if somebody's not quite at that level yet, we can still scaffold them and provide materials for them too, and not expect them all to be up here. And the last part is how we are judging whether they're learning the information we want them to learn. And UDL provides these very basic guidelines, and I agree with them. We need to be accurate in the way we assess. So for instance, if we are giving a midterm, we need to make sure it's assessing the goals we want them to learn. We need to be timely with our feedback so they can use our feedback and incorporate it into future learning projects, either within our course or across whatever course content they're taking in the program. Of course, it needs to be comprehensive. And one of the things that I always hear about students is somebody grades my paper and they say this is wrong, but they don't tell me why it's wrong or how it's wrong or how to improve upon that. So, just paying really close attention to the way we articulate how we expect the student to improve upon their work. And we're going to tie it all in now with a little bit of an example of a course that I've really worked to include UDL into, and that is my research course, because social workers often have a very difficult time engaging with content in a research class. So I've made some mistakes, and I'm hopefully strengthening based upon UDL, which is really exciting for me. So my goals in this course directly align with our social work competencies, and that's to be a consumer of research and to articulate the research process by writing a comprehensive paper. So right there, you can see the two main areas that every week I am building towards and focusing them. And so they also need to learn how to research articles and learn APA style. If they did not know how to research articles, I might post the articles for them on Canvas. But because that is one of the tasks they need to learn, I actually, ask them to look it up, and I don't post it on Canvas. In other classes I do, or else that would create a barrier to their learning. So the materials that I use library resources that offer text to speech and not just the textbook. And that's very important for some of our students. I record the class and post it on Canvas. And I also use a lot of videos with closed caption. I used to not care where I got my videos from, so I get them from off the internet anywhere, and I realized that a lot of them didn't have the option to be closed captioned. So now I have that, and I post everything on Canvas, of course, as most of you do. And then the methods that we use, it's very important that we're always visualizing in this class where we are as far as meeting our goals. So creating a lot of diagrams is one of the ways that I am able to sort of accomplish that through methodology, and a lot of flexibility in the way I'm teaching according to the students' needs, what they need, and where I see there are stuck points in the research learning. Ongoing writing exercises where they get really timely feedback, so their end project can be a result of growth and not just a one-shot deal. And then yeah, I think that covers it for the methods. And we use a lot of different methods in that class for learning, including manipulatives to articulate research process. And then finally, the assessment. You heard my example of how the midterm, I totally missed the boat on what I really wanted students to learn, which was how to do research and how to understand a research paper. And instead, I was teaching them how to take a test. So that was really creating an artificial barrier for getting them to learn what I really wanted them to learn. So I changed around the way I had them articulate midterm and final assessment. And I actually have some flexibility in that process, so students can choose which way they want to take the final. And I also offer enough time for everybody to take a final. So those with testing accommodations don't necessarily need to use them, which is, again, it's isolative. So I prefer if we gave enough time in the class so everybody had enough time. And then again, the final paper, they have flexibility on the topic. It's learner driven, and it has built-in scaffolds. So I'm always giving them feedback. And by the end, hopefully they come out with a wonderful research paper with the skills they can take into their future courses in the graduate program. All right. Shoo. So I think I think we were able to cover sort of the broad framework of UDL. Are there any questions? Yeah.
Question on the lecture. You talked
Sure.
about closed caption. Can we turn our lectures, because I'm experimenting with my LE100, and I give audio video. I record myself to give feedback on a paper to talk to them. So can we turn those into closed caption?
Yeah, we can. So you can put caption.
Or like if there's a lecture, you could make it closed caption. Like if you record your lecture, you can make it closed caption.
On Canvas, did you hear?
There's this crazy thing we saw at the Canvas conference this summer, that with the ARC product, is that what you're going to say?
Well, there was a couple of different options. I was gonna say. You did a wonderful job presenting this, by the way.
Thank you.
I've taught this in a course before. You did a wonderful job. But YouTube has a closed caption that's about 50%,
Yeah.
and it's pretty. It depends on how well you speak into it, where you record it. We do a transcript, and then we can upload it and do closed captioning. We've done that before for people in YouTube, or you just provide the transcript. Yes, ARC is supposed to have something built in.
Yeah, Canvas claims that it has 80%.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 75%, I think.
Videos on the new thing, but
on the fly, which I don't believe. I honestly
hard
don't
to
It
believe that.
misses well. I've tried it. It's a hit or miss whether they're getting the proper transcription.
It's probably us articulating into or a good microphone.
And
or
that is part of it. The better you speak, which I don't speak well, as you guys can see, but the more articulate you are in speaking, better it picks it up, which I think is why YouTube is only like 50%, and ARC, I don't believe it's 80%. Like, I'm sorry.
Exciting to know that.
They're trying to improve it, but yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't seem right.
Well, and the one thing about recording lectures is I talked with Jared Flaherty, and because I hate big blue button, I just don't like it. I'm sorry. So I'm like, is there another way to
It
record
doesn't have
besides
defenders
big,
left on campus.
big blue button? And so we just decided to do a Zoom meeting for the lectures and record it that way and upload it onto YouTube. So if we need, that's what we did. Well, actually, we recorded it using my phone. So yeah, and one other thing about Canvas is I've been doing quite a bit of research for our online accessibility SIG. So anybody who knows anything about that, please join in, because for me, it's all new, you know. Anyway, any other questions?
The last slide you mentioned about the Learn APA style, is that the most acceptable style right now? Because in my class, and some student asked me, can I use a different writing style besides the APA? So I don't know, APA is that the most
I don't like to use APA at all.
Well, it just
they're
depends
not?
on your
No.
discipline. It just depends on your
style.
discipline. But in the graduate social work program, APA style is expected. So, I mean, and that is part of the process of the
That's the
writing.
style we want for business as well. We always use APA.
We need ACS added into our L100 library.
Get it. You've got a chat as well.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
She's good.
Hi. Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it.
I actually have, this is very exciting from a different perspective, not so much from a teacher, but my son is autistic.
Oh.
And he's high functioning autistic, but he definitely has some very specific learning style challenges. And so this is very interesting, trying to look at it from a parent point of view and I've had autistic students as well. And I like the ideas of this. I don't know enough to how to do this, but it's very interesting from that point of view.
So that's why everybody should attend Debbie's special interest group.
I will do that.
Yeah, and we're gonna work and figure this out together. And the one thing that is great about UDL, they offer great online resources, books, research articles. There's a lot of research to back this up. But I can read till kingdom come. But unless I'm actually enacting it in my classroom, I'm not quite sure. Every class is a little bit different. And so that's why Ashley is such a huge help. Because I say things and she's like, meh, meh. And I'm like, oh, okay, it was just an idea. That's why I run it past you as a former student. And things that I wouldn't even be aware of. You know, accessibility issues that wouldn't even be brought to my attention if, like, she wasn't in our class last year, and a couple of times she spoke up, and I was like, yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. But thank goodness she spoke up and said something.
Well, and I think too, I don't know if you guys can hear me. You know, this has been great. Thank you guys both so much for presenting and sharing this information, because I think it helps each of us think about our teaching in a different way, which is always the purpose of any type of learning. You know, something I'm wondering about, especially as you start these SIGs, Debora, and you have faculty who are working on these things within their own classes, it would be great if you know, maybe at the end of the year you guys could share that, or if we could post it on the FCI website, because I think for me as a faculty member to think about, like, okay, so what might this look like in my classroom? It would be great to know other faculty members at Park who've been through your SIG, or who learn a little bit more about this and how they've done it in their classrooms, just as additional people to reach out and say, hey, you know, you're in my college or my school, and I was thinking about doing this. What do you think? And just to kind of further even expand the network that you two have already created with one another. I'm just really excited about it. So thank you for getting us started on this topic and building on it this year. So thanks.
Can I ask a question? So I think what I heard so far is that you need to pay attention to everything, but are there principles for, okay, I don't want to leave anything out. I'm convinced by but is it like dynamic? I need to pay attention to everything and make individual sort of choices, or is there a universal design framework already that I could implement in my courses.
Yes, I mean, if you go to those websites, it's on the PowerPoint, and I'm sure the PowerPoint will be available to you, or I can send it to you, the CAST and the Center for Universal Design of Learning, and they have all kinds of instructional materials of how to set up. But the whole point is, are you providing multiple means of representation? Are you giving flexibility in the way you're demonstrating your material, multiple means of action and engagement, and multiple means of expression? You know, that's the whole idea behind those 3 principles, is if you are looking at each one, and we have some handouts if you'd like to, available to us today. I think they're in my bag over there, but you know, if you're like, no, I'm only representing this information one way, it's saying I need to be more proactive about the way I am putting forth my information. Like, is this, like, asking proactively, would this information be accessible to everybody? Is this activity that we're doing in class accessible to everybody? So it's asking those questions.
In terms of multiple activities, I have noticed that when a student is given an option of, we're going to do these 5 papers throughout the year, or we're going to do this big paper at the end, they choose the one at the end because then they don't have to think about it until the end. Or they'll choose, if they can do something other than a paper, take a final, for instance, and I think the final might be easier than the paper, they'll take the one that's easiest, maybe not the one that's most appropriate to their learning style.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's nice that you're offering flexibility. So you're removing barriers in the curriculum, and Ashley, you might have something to say about this, but what I would suggest is you've done your part in removing those barriers for them, and the options that they choose, that's definitely motivated. That's in that expert learner piece where they need to figure out for themselves what's best, and if they, you know, I mean, they are going to choose the easiest, but maybe expressing why this may seem easier, but it actually creates a lot more barriers to getting the information you need.
That's what I would also say. It's so you're hitting that multiple means of representation. Got that, but the engagement piece, maybe that needs a little extra. So maybe the student, I might have been one of those students that have done that in the past. Just don't understand that towards that end, you're really gonna be buckling down and have a lot of work on you. So maybe just that engagement piece from the beginning of, these are out there, take it or leave it, but as long as you've got that representation and engagement, that's the biggest part. Everything can be separated into small individual principles, but in general, it's that big, broad topic. You just want to hit that engagement on the head and get that out of the way.
Can I add something? So you're talking about a final paper at the end, but you can scaffold that into milestones that you have to meet and get formative feedback. So they'll still have to submit 5 times, just like the 5 papers. That way, they still have to do the same work.
Well, I'm gonna steal from what we've talked about at work before. Instead of like doing papers, you give them options to be like, you write a paper, you do a poem, you write a song, something. And because Sharon's done this in some of her courses that she's helped design, and I was gonna bring this up, but I mean, because then you're talking about different ways that people learn, that way they can express themselves. So that's more of the universal design. I was kind of thinking you were gonna say, that's why I shut up. But
And Chris has taught this. I don't know if he's shared with you.
Well,
but
I
he's
need to
actually
get
taught
with
this.
you then.
Well, I saw somebody.
It's been a few years ago since I have, but I
Yeah.
did teach this in one of my, it was an education course.
Yeah.
At another university. I have taught universal design before.
Yeah.
I think you have done a wonderful job. I think you're probably more of an expert at it now than I am, but
Well, and I always think about offering options for representation and action and expression. So you're exactly right with offering, like, a lot of times we just think the final paper, but is that the means to the end? Do we really want them to become expert writers, or do we want them to become experts on the topic? And that writing can be a barrier to some students. So would they rather present? Would they rather create a movie? Would they rather, and I have those options in my other classes that aren't research, because they need to learn how to write and research. So, you know.
And Tony asked a great question on the chat on assessment. I was wondering that too. If you offer someone to take a test and someone else writes a paper, how do you validate the assessment as being when you're going to prove to an accreditor? I think as instructors you could. I think you understand whether or not they learn, but I don't know how you would necessarily validate that. That would be a
That's
process.
a great question. I mean, my gut feeling is to create the rubric up front. So your judgment is based upon the rubric and not like when you're in there.
Specific.
Yeah. So they demonstrate thorough knowledge of the topic. Give 3 thorough examples of the topic. So that doesn't matter if it's a paper, if it's a video, if it's a movie.
I think our accrediting body though wants to know.
That's a good
They
example.
want to know beyond just the rubric. They want to know what you're doing and how you're measuring it.
Yeah. So that's
I
good to
that
think
would be a
about.
good challenge.
That is a good challenge and good to think about. Have to go back to the literature.
I have another kind of, well, now I'm gonna put it back on my teacher hat, and it's great. I love this. I want to do it. How do I not cut content in the process? Because I've got to get through in my general chemistry or my organic chemistry class, I have to get through 8 chapters. So that the next 8 chapters can go on to the next course.
Yeah.
It's that age-old balance between content and quality. So,
The way that, sorry.
no, please.
The way that I've read it on the Universal Design website is you're not alone feeling this way. Millions of professors, instructors feel this way. So what they say is approach it from the beginning. So maybe it might be a little late to revamp your entire class this semester. Do little things this semester. Maybe next semester think about how I can start this class from the beginning with some universal design principles. And it's also about not going gung-ho all at once. Take baby steps. Incorporating another one person in our classroom is great. I mean, it's better than nobody. So even if we can reach out to one extra student this semester and maybe next semester, a couple more is all that we're asking. So not revamp.
Definitely the accessibility issue needs to be addressed up front. I mean, there's no reason that, but it's the learning style accommodation, I think,
Yeah,
that has me.
That each
challenged.
person's learning style is as unique as their fingerprint. Now, I can't get it unique to each student probably,
No.
but and how do I know? I mean, unless there is someone sends me a note that says this student has this learning disability, you have to accommodate them. I don't know what learning styles are out there.
Well, and this is an interesting question because this is where the proactive part comes in. And this year, what I started to address accessibility with my syllabus. And I have a great 2-minute mentor if you're interested in looking at it, where I talk about UDL and syllabus design. But part of my syllabus, I attached a handout with a confidential student information sheet that asked about their strengths and learnings, their challenges with learnings, and if there's anything special you'd like me to know about your learning style. Some people write on there, I have a kid, if they're sick, I'm gonna be out, and I just want you to know I'm gonna be absent. And that's helpful for me, even though it might not have much to do with UDL, except for making sure I get that stuff on Canvas. But even something like that is helpful to me, or like I'm pregnant and I gotta go all the time to the bathroom, and I'm just letting you know it's a challenge for me learning because I can't focus very well. So that is one of the things, and I just wanted to get back to you with the challenge of curriculum because I face the same challenge in research. It's a contextual challenge, and the way that I have sort of thought about it this semester, and I hope that I get stronger at it. The way I've thought about it is I've thought, what is really the important and the meaty information? Yes, it's in a whole textbook, but what's the really meaty information that I need for them to meet these 2 primary goals, right? And then everything else I teach, but it's not emphasized as much week after week as those primary learning, those mechanisms that are going to help them reach their primary goal. And it has actually improved it, because instead of having to memorize 10 different intervening variable types, now we talk about intervening variables as a whole, and they know what it is as a whole. They may not know those different types, and granted, they're not going to remember them anyway after they leave the class, but they really hone in on what is an intervening variable.
So I hate to interrupt.
Yeah, I know, we've got
conversation.
I'm sorry, we have six.
No, it's okay. We are at time.
Yeah.
However, if you all would like to stay and continue the conversation, you are more than welcome to. So just so everyone knows, if you need to leave, you can. However, if you want to stay and continue, you can as well, as long as Debbie and Ashley are available. You know, we have to take their time into consideration as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Great job, guys. Thank you. very
Thank
much.
you, and I hope that if there's some handouts, and I hope we can see this opportunity.
For now?
I know, I huge one.
When-
That's a good idea.
I was just saying,
Okay, let me know.
let me hear, I would love to hear your part. Well, actually,
Yeah, I'm on the second floor. I see you walk through all the time.
I do, because I always.
Yeah.
I saw someone say we need a merit expert, but in the freshman, it's like we
Chris,
forget to look
I
at
do have a student, she wrote in my investment class. The investment class is very quantitative. I give her a extra credit, I said, yes, she used all the terms. Those,
Oh, wow.
or something, and make a point.
See, it's just, it's little things like that. I know,